Perspective is important for properly understanding a change or an adaptation. There has been a lot of discussion surrounding the changes being made to characters in Mortal 1 Kombat, from changes in history, to changes in personality, to changes in ethnic aesthetic. But Sub-Zero seems largely ignored in this, the discussion mostly surrounding the identity of his brother, and I find that interesting. Bi-Han is back in the Sub-Zero mantle, and his personality and story thus far indicate that he is heading down a similar path of evil as he did in prior timelines, with heavy hinting towards an eventual conflict with his brother. Is this lack of discussion down to people viewing the current incarnation as effectively unchanged from prior iterations? For years, I've been seeing people make the assertion that Bi-Han, even prior to his corruption into Noob Saibot, was a wicked, evil person who despised his brother. And yet, no one seems to have a source on this. The best I can figure is that they take Noob's taunts in MK11 at face value, despite this being the corrupted, twisted version, meaning his words are not a great source. Much like MK9 Twindell, his service under Quan Chi, coming after a time when Quan Chi has wronged him, is obviously performed under mind control, and his corrupted state after the sorcerer's death is the lingering after effect of his control, much like the Revenant's. Even if he outright says he never cared for his brother, it's too late now to take him at his word. So let's go over pre-corruption Bi-Han and his relationship with his brother, so we can understand who Bi-Han originally was, so we can fully understand how similar or dissimilar his latest incarnation is. Back in MK Mythology's Sub-Zero, the only real source of personality we have, he is stated to have darkness in his heart, which is how he can enter the Netherrealm, and suggested to be heading for hell when he dies. But he's an assassin, of course he's got evil in him. But Kuai Liang, Cyrax and Smoke are also assassins in the same clan, but no one calls them inherently evil. His job alone isn't enough to judge him as evil. It's really there to give his story a tragic element, suggesting he may not have been able to change enough by the time he died 2 years later. The idea was somewhat continued in Ashura's Deception ending, where Shujinko says,
Noob Saibot was not originally a demon. He had to earn his place in the Netherrealm.
Again, there is evil there because he kills for a living. I mean, Hanzo also ended up in hell when he died, and no one thinks he was a bad guy in life. This is not indicative of Bi-Han's personality beyond a willingness to kill, especially when he doesn't kill every opponent. I think people see Kuai Liang spare Reptile in MK9 because he's not his target, and assume it's the detail that distinguishes him from his brother, but it's not. Serena's presence in Tournament Edition, Armageddon, and MKX only occurs because Bi-Han spared her life. She, a stranger who tries to kill him when he's out to defeat her master. He lets her live because he has some compassion for others, and the way he holds her when Shinnok seems to kill her is suggestive of a kindness within. Him not sparing her comrades suggests that he can sense that there is good in her, and or that he's growing tired of the killing and is heading towards the retirement his MK1 ending promised. And if he's willing to show such kindness to a total stranger who tried to kill him, why would he be any different towards his brother? In Noob Smoke's Deception ending, Shujinko describes Bi-Han thusly.
Noob Saibot was surprised to see how much stronger his brother had become. If he were still Lin Kuei, still human, he would probably have shown some degree of pride. The original Sub-Zero had descended into the Netherrealm free from compassion.
This tells us that Bi-Han did care about his brother to some extent, holding the capacity to have pride in Kuai Liang's strength, but that capacity was stolen from him when he became Noob Saibot. We also have the single solitary pre-corruption interaction between the two in the franchise, the MK4 prequel comic showing Bi-Han explaining the Temple of the Elements to Kuai Liang. It's mostly a plot device to get Kuai Liang up to speed in time for MK4's events, but Bi-Han going out of his way to explain something that, in the grand scheme of things, isn't that important to relay the events of his mission, suggests a desire to educate his brother, to arm him with knowledge that he might better fulfill his duty and survive. There's nothing here to suggest he has a problem with him. And speaking of Kuai Liang, that he cares enough about his brother to try and avenge or save him a lot of the time should also be indicative of their former closeness. Remember, Kuai Liang in Shaolin Monks and MK9 was out to avenge his brother. In the former, he has left the Lin Kuei and is doing this for purely personal reasons. In the latter, he is still Lin Kuei, but his revenge quest is explicitly unsanctioned, defying his clan before he has reason to distrust them or to avenge his brother. In Armageddon, he wants to save him after Taven defeats him. This is not the only time he is shown to have this desire. He takes up his brother's mantle after his death, and even his MK4 costume is described as his brother's, suggesting this is the same one from Mythologies. Why would he do all that if the two weren't close? One might think that's just the younger brother looking up to his elder and not seeing him for the distant/abusive SOB he really is, but there is nothing to suggest this. All we have is Kuai Liang caring about his brother. In his MK11 ending, Kuai Liang makes these comments.
I studied every second of Bi-Han's life to understand why he embraced Sector's corruption, why he reveled in the vile power given to him by Quan Chi.
What exactly he means by embraced Sektor's corruption is not entirely clear. The Cyber Initiative only started after Bi-Han was dead, and he never expressed any thoughts on it before or after. My best guess is him working with Sektor and Frost in the story mode, but that really doesn't mean anything because they're all working for Kronika. And the line about reveling in the power is something he would do if he was corrupted, as the Revenants do. It's most likely just a byproduct of the corruption, making him love it so he doesn't try to break free. I think people see corrupted Bi-Han reject his brother and Kuai Liang badmouth him 30 years later, and think there was never any love there, which is absurd. The closest to an indication of a coldness between the two is the MK2 prequel comic, where Kuai Liang speaks dismissively on his brother's rejection of technology. But even then, he contemplates killing Scorpion for revenge, despite his assistance against Reptile. We have zero reason to assume there is any bad blood between the two brothers prior to the corrupted Bi-Han tarnishing his own legacy. If Bi-Han really is basically the same personality-wise between forms, why would such an intense amount of corruption and alteration even be necessary? Even looking purely at the Netherrealm timeline, when Bi-Han being Noob Saibot was established from the start and not revealed a decade later, why would Quan Chi not just turn him into a Revenant? Why change his powers and skin colour so drastically? The Wraith form is clearly a symbol of how much he was twisted to reach this state. He is the metaphor of a blackened soul made manifest. He's not a Revenant, those having a warped version of their existing personalities, exacerbating their anger towards Raiden. Clearly more was done here, and for a reason. I'm not suggesting he's more averse to serving evil than them or anything, but that he was given a new identity, unlike any other servant of Quan Chi, has to mean something. From a writing standpoint, what's the point in him being turned into a whole new person, even having entirely new powers now, if he's basically the same person he always was? If they were the same, Netherrealm could even have turned everyone into Wraiths at the end, but they chose to differentiate them from him. Their identities are maintained but twisted. Bi-Han's is stolen. His personality as Noob cannot be taken as in any way indicative of his personality as Sub-Zero. I'm not saying Bi-Han was a good person, but the constant assertion that he was a piece of shit without any real evidence to back it up needs to stop. It's conjecture and nothing more. His confirmed traits are that he is a contract killer, is loyal to the Lin Kuei, hates the shit I do, is distrustful of sorcerers, has a sense of compassion, and feels some kind of concern over Quan Chi's assertions that he has evil in his soul. Nothing suggests he's a dick to his brother beyond what he himself says after being corrupted. This is a version that goads everyone in MK11, so I don't think we can take him at his word. Need I remind you that this man once wielded a weapon called the Troll Hammer? Guys, he's full of shit. And you are too if you insist that he always hated his brother. If you liked this video, why not subscribe and support me on Patreon like these fine people here? If not, then make sure to share it with your enemies so they can suffer along with you. Today's recommended video is The History of Sub-Zero / Noob Saibot Mortal Kombat 1 Edition by History Behind the Warrior.